Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of survivors.org podcast sponsored by PAVE, promoting awareness, victim empowerment. We are so grateful for all of you to join us here. I always like to start by saying that this is a safe space. Undoubtedly, there's going to be some listeners, some watchers who've personally experienced trauma in your life. And we always want you to know that you are not alone. If at any time you need some support, you can visit survivors.org. We have a host of resources for you. And we are really excited to be talking to Eva LaRue today. This is a way for us to bring early attention to National Stalking Awareness Month, which is observed every year in January. And this January 2024 will mark the 20th national anniversary of National Stalking Awareness Month. So let's talk for a minute about stalking. It's most often defined as a pattern of behavior directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to fear for their safety or for the safety of others or suffer some emotional distress. The National Intimate Partner in Sexual Violence Survey from 2016 and 2017 reports that about 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men have been stalked at some point in their lives. While most women and men first experience being stalked as adults, approximately 24% of female victims and 19% of male victims reported being stalked as minors. An estimated 13.5 million people are stalked in a 1-year period in the United States. It's extremely common. And 1 in 7 stalking victims move as a result of that victimization. Stalking victims suffer much higher rates of depression, anxiety, insomnia, social dysfunction, other than people in the general population. And 37% of people who are stalked meet the diagnostic criteria for PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, which we're trying to change to PTSI, which is post-traumatic stress injury. Now, more investment into stalking research is sorely needed, experts say, especially for LGBTQIA plus people. And the CDC in 2010 found that bisexual women were disproportionately exposed to intimate partner violence and stalking. We want to shine a light on this insidious crime of stalking and affirm that every person deserves to live free from fear, intimidation, and threats to their physical safety and emotional well-being. And a lot of people don't know this about my story, but I actually was stalked by the man who abducted me from a shopping mall. So I'm very passionate about this. And we're so grateful to have an incredibly passionate guest here today, which I'm sure you probably recognize from TV. Eva LaRue is an Emmy Award-winning actress with dozens of film and television credits, best known for her longtime roles on CBS's CSI Miami and ABC's All My Children. On CSI Miami, she played the role of DNA specialist turned CSI, Natalie Boavista, and on All My Children, she played the role of Dr. Maria Santos Gray. She served for a number of years as a spokesperson for the Beckstrand Cancer Foundation, and most recently has done extensive work with an international justice center, helping some of the most vulnerable people in society, mostly women and children from Mexico and other foreign countries, to seek asylum and security through the U.S. justice system. And we are so excited to welcome our co-host as well, Dr. Michelle Kukla, who's a licensed clinical psychologist who founded the Healthy Living Counseling Center. Thank you so much. Michelle has our first question.
Thank you, Angela. And once again, welcome, Eva. We're so excited to be able to have you with our community and be able to share such an important topic that oftentimes I think gets missed. And so
Thank you. Yeah. I really appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So we'll start off here with an interesting beginning. I'm really into quotes. I love quotes. And so I thought I'd ask you if you have a quote or a mantra that you found that was very inspiring for you and that resonates with you.
Well, I love and hate this quote, but I make sure to apply it in all the tough spots of my life. And that's that this is not happening to me. This is happening for me. I love it, but I hate it because then I have to, instead of being able to sit in my own little, everybody needs a little victim space for a second, just to be like, why me? How come this is all like, this is all, falling on me at once. But when I'm able to pick myself out of that pretty quickly and say, no, this is happening for me. I may not see it right now. It may be more in hindsight. When all of the things develop and show in all the ways that it is for me to grow. for me to evolve, for me to heal, for me to look deep and take responsibility where I'm not taking responsibility. So that is my favorite quote.
Wow, I can understand that, and it's so grounding. I can see how that just helps kind of propel you forward and transcend some of life's adversity. Well, that is a great quote. Yes.
What an inspiration you are. Thank you so much for that answer. And could you please share your story with our community as to how you became such a strong advocate for bringing crucial public awareness around better protection for people from stalking and intimate partner violence?
Yes, it started about 2 years into my being on CSI Miami. I got my very first letter, and this letter came to my publicist, and at the time, and he would go through, every fifth letter or something, and then send the whole bag over to me to sign and send out pictures or whatever it was that people were asking for. And he came across this letter and he called me immediately and he read it to me, and it was horrifying. I'd never had an email like that before in all the years in the business, and it was detailing just pages of gruesome, horrifying detail of how he wanted to kidnap me and keep me as a sex slave, and then rape me and dismember me and leave parts of me and let the rest of the CSI team try to figure out who it was, and if I was such a great CSI that I should be able to find out who it is. And so they were all signed Freddy Krueger, and all the letters were coming from Ohio, but it was a PO box somewhere in Ohio. So thankfully, on set, we had, when I was working at CSI, we had tech advisors, and they were homicide detectives, retired homicide detectives, retired SWAT, things like that. So thankfully, I had somebody counseling me, because when I immediately called the police department to ask for any kind of help, local law enforcement really has their hands tied. I don't know if I read this somewhere or I feel like this, but it really is this victimless, it's this crimeless crime, being stalked.
Mm-hmm.
Crimeless crime, because they cannot arrest anybody for not having laid hands on you, broken into your house, being on your private property. If they are just emotionally, psychologically terrorizing you, there's no crime in that still yet. You're allowed to do that, evidently, with local law enforcement. So I felt completely unprotected. Thankfully, the studio hired security for me at the studio, security for me when we were out on location. I armed my house with every possible camera, and I had security going back and like an armed driver driving around security. I was scared to death. Thankfully, one of my girlfriends, before I got on CSI, told me that I should buy my house in an LLC so that it wouldn't be traced. And she said, "I'm telling you, if you ever end up with," I was like, "Well, that seems, it's more expensive to do that. It's a little more of a pain in the butt to do that." And she goes, "I'm telling you, it is not a pain in the butt if you compare that to having to move." So she said, I had to move. When I got a stalker, they started showing up to my house and I had to leave. So she said, just do. And I thought, who's going to stalk me? It's like, she's on a vampire show. I'm on of course she's going to have strange vampire people stalk. Nope. Sure enough, it was me. And not only that, but at the same time, David Caruso had a stalker. His stalker was in Europe, and they actually put her on the no-fly list because she was threatening to bomb his house and steal his daughter from college. It was crazy. And Emily Proctor had a stalker at the same time. So on set, she had a female stalker. They both had female stalkers. And so when we think that this is a male-dominated scenario, it really is not. Mm-hmm. And also for men being stalked, not just the stalkee, but the stalker happens for men and women both. So here I was in this crazy situation where our tech advisors told me to go to the FBI because the letters were coming via mail, which made this particular scenario fall under FBI jurisdiction. Thank God. And yet. So the FBI picked up the case for me, started picking up the letters as they would come in to my publicist. So here I am on this TV show where we are solving every crime in 43 minutes, not including commercials. And in real life, my case can't be solved seemingly at all, even though there's tons of DNA evidence. So here I'm a DNA expert on the show, and everybody is in CODIS, which I'm sure you ladies know, but maybe not everybody. So CODIS is the national database for law enforcement. And up until a few, 5-6 years ago, with the advent of 23andMe and Ancestry.com and GEDmatch and all these things, the only DNA that was available to law enforcement was actual convicted perpetrators, because you and I are not in CODIS. We've never been arrested and had our DNA taken, and so 80% of the people in CODIS are already in jail. The other 20% are John Does from rape kits. So they were getting no hit on my guy because he didn't have any priors, and so he was in that gray area of not being able to be caught for 12 years. Wow. So I ended up, I was, when you're a mom, because eventually it ended up escalating to him including my daughter in these letters and saying how he was going to kidnap us both. He was going to rape and dismember her, and then he was going to rape. It was beyond gruesome, beyond your biggest nightmare. And when you don't feel like you can protect your baby, it is, I remember my eyelashes were falling out. I had like a hive rash. My hair it's crazy. The physical, manifestation of that kind of terror, because I didn't know where he was. Did he know where I lived? Was he around every corner? If I walked out of my house, if I took my daughter to school, was I being followed? It was paranoia on a whole different level. And I have to say, the thing that happened to me, within about 3 months, we finished shooting that season of CSI. We wrapped, and a guy friend of mine, a dear friend of mine from childhood, said, thankfully, this is going to sound so bougie, but he and his family have a house in Italy, and they were going to be going in, for the summer. And they said, come for the summer, leave LA, bring Kaya, and come for the summer. And I thought, oh my God, I'm literally fleeing for my life. I felt like I was fleeing, because I was so scared to be in my own house. So I left, took Kaya, we went to Italy. We were there 2 days, and in the middle of the night, one night, we both had jet lag. It was like 3:00 in the morning, and she was about 6 years old, and she rolled over and she's like, "Mama, are you awake?" And I was like, I'm awake. Are you awake? And she's like, "I'm awake." And I said, "It's okay. We'll eventually fall back asleep." So we're laying there for about 10 more minutes, and the bedroom door opens. And you know how when there's a light behind somebody, you can't see their face because their face is dark because they're being lit up from behind. So the room behind was light, and the door opened, and somebody came in the room, and I said, "Max," my friend, right? "Max, you have jet lag too?" I'm like, "Max? And I'm trying to be quiet because I thought maybe maybe she fell back asleep. So I was like, Max, and he's on the other side of the room in the doorway. And then he closes the door and leaves. And I thought, oh, he must be up. Okay, well, I'll go run to the bathroom first. I might as well get up and go to the bathroom. Thank God I did. Because when I finished going to the bathroom, I went out into the house and all the lights were on in the house. And I started walking around going, Max, Gina, his mom, no one's around. I look upstairs because their rooms are upstairs. Okay, well, they must have gone back to bed. So I go back to bed. First thing in the morning, Max comes running in our room. Oh my God, we've been robbed. They stole the car. They came upstairs to our bedroom and stole our jewelry off of our nightstands. We think maybe we were drugged, was it ethanol or like drugged or something, because none of us woke up. They stole my mom's purse. They took the key. They took like everything. And so we're like, oh my God, he came in our room. He was like in the room with us.
Wow.
And so he was steps from our bed. Now, this was not the stalker, but
Okay.
like at that point, the only thing, and this is where it didn't happen to me, it happened for me, really came into play, because what I got in that moment was really God's hand on my chest, on my heart, saying, if I wanted you dead, I would have you dead.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, he came right in your room, every opportunity to do every horrible thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if I wanted that to happen to you, I would have let it happen to you. And after that, I was able to put it in a bin in the back of my mind and say, I have to trust that I'm protected. I have to. I can't live in this kind of fear. I can't be running. I can't be moving. I did move when he did find my address. I moved twice, but I had to, for the most part, put that in its own little holder, its own little compartment, and then do what I could to keep us safe and keep us protected. And over the course of those 12 years, even though they had all the DNA from the letters, his fingerprint from the stamps, him licking the back of the envelopes, all the things, it wasn't until Kaya was a senior in high school. Tell me if you need a break, and I'm just droning on for too long, but she was a senior in high school. We had gotten a little stupid and lax about our social media. She was, it was her senior year cheerleading, and so she was posting pictures on, of her in her cheerleading uniform, and it was Notre Dame nights, and there's only one Notre Dame nights in Los Angeles. So one day she gets a call at the school through the attendance office, and they said, just wanted to let Kaya know, gave her a note in class. Your dad just called the school and said he is going to pick you up after school. So just stand out in front of the school after, and he's going to pick you up. And so Kaya texted me and she said, Mom, is Dad in town? Because her dad at the time lived 2.5 hours away in Palm Desert. And her dad and I are great friends. So no way is he coming up to LA. Never has he come up to LA and not told me beforehand and said, okay, let's all go out to dinner, or I'm going to come hang out, or whatever. And I said, well, I don't think he's here. She goes, Mom, oh my God, Mom, I know it's not Dad. It can't be Dad. Dad would have told me yesterday. And so I text her dad. He's like, no, I'm not coming to LA today. So I call the school and I said, I'm coming to pick up Kaya. The stalker found her. I know. They're like, you're overreacting. You're being crazy. I'm like, you think what you want. I'm going to call the FBI and I'm coming to pick up my kid. And she's basically not coming back to school because now he knows where she goes to school. So her senior year is about to be obliterated because he knows where she is. That's never been the case before, like actually been able to pinpoint. So I race to the school and pick her up. The school is still going, oh, I'm sure this is a misunderstanding. I'm sure it's not a big deal. I call the FBI, and my case manager, my case agent for the last 12 years, I find out, has gotten a promotion. He's gone. He's off that desk. And I'm like, oh my God, this is DEFCON 5 and I need help. And they're like, well, you're two new, agents will call you in the morning. I said, I need help right now. I don't know if he followed us home from the school. I don't know if he's here in LA, because he clearly must be here because he found us. And so we stayed in a hotel that night because I'm scared to death to stay at the house. The two FBI agents in the morning go directly to the school. Now the school is appropriately freaked out because overnight the stalker left 7 messages detailing what he was going to do when he apprehended Kaya and what he was going to do to any kid that got in the way or any person that got in the way of him kidnapping her, raping, killing. He said all the things on the school answering machine. So when they got in the morning, they're losing their minds, right? And the FBI gets there and they bug the answering machines and they interview everybody. And then they call me. And Steve Bush was then my new agent. And he said, this is the most ironic timing because I got your case 2 weeks ago. And just for a little backstory, he said, I just came off a 6-person team solving the Golden State Killer case with a brand new DNA technology that we just developed working on that case. And we wanted to make sure that it was a replicable technology and not just a fluke. So we were looking for another case that had a ton of DNA, and yours was the case we picked up, and we solved your case. And just so you know, we have eyes on your stalker. He's still in Ohio. We were literally getting ready. We were not going to call you until we arrested him because he said, he goes, I don't want to sound dramatic, but I was really excited about being able to call you and say, Ms. LaRue, we got him. So that was like the big,
Wow.
That was huge for us. And within a couple of days, he was under arrest and he was on his way to being prosecuted, which was amazing.
Wow. Oh my gosh. What a journey. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Just your bravery here and just, and especially the beautiful story about just trusting in God and knowing that God was going to care for you and keep you protected. And thank you so much. Gosh.
You're welcome.
Wow, that was so beautiful. I just really want to commend you. It takes so much courage to not only go through that with such grace, but for communicating that to us. So thank you. So we don't often talk about just stalking. You know, it frequently gets tagged into domestic violence and sexual abuse, but stalking, its own unique sense of trauma. So would you say that it's something that you feel as well that it deserves to be discussed separately?
I feel like it does because just having worked with Steve Bush, now he's my great friend. He's, and Steve Kramer, who also helped create the new technology, and now they've both left the FBI and started their own company. But doing, basically they want to eradicate the word serial from any serial stalker, serial rapist, because now they can catch somebody immediately with this new technology. And in talking to them, they said that 80% of stalking cases end up in murder. So it is an escalation. Stalking is just a precursor to what they want to do to you. Stalking is not, it's rarely just because they think you're pretty and they want you to be their girlfriend. There are all kinds of crazy, and as we know with most perpetrators, the escalation is what's exciting for them. So 80%, give or take, with most perpetrators roughly is of stalking cases are a precursor to murder or rape or something far more heinous than just stalking.
Thank you.
So it is definitely something we have to talk about, because even though it seems like the crimeless crime, it's only crimeless for a minute.
Right. I've got one more.
You said you were stalked first. They stalked you first.
I was, but I didn't know it at the time. And my next question is about law enforcement. I'd love to hear your experience. You touched on it a little bit. So I'm going to ask one more question, then send it to Michelle. But when I went down to report what happened to me, nobody believed me at the police station. And so, I just would love to hear a little bit more. Like, you talked about your work with law enforcement. Obviously, your stalker was captured. Unfortunately, a lot of survivors of all types of trauma can have a really challenging experience when seeking help from law enforcement. We are trying to change that. PAVE does a lot of training for law enforcement, but I'd love to know just a little bit more about what your experience was like in dealing with law enforcement.
I mean, local law enforcement was pretty exhausting because they really, there are no real laws to help a victim of stalking, even though they know that it could escalate to something worse. Unless they have laid hands on you, unless they have stepped on your property, unless they've broken into your house, there's really nothing they can do. And they can sit out on the sidewalk in front of your house all they want. And there's absolutely nothing they can do. And that is the ultimate frustration. And that's where the real fear sets in, because you know that unless your case falls under, federal statutes, that you really can't be helped. And even so.
Right. Yeah, I did ask the DA in my case why they didn't charge him with some stalking. They're like, at that time, I'm sure that some states have changed, but there was no law against it. I thought that was so interesting. In my case, the perpetrator was on parole for murder and, was out on parole for 6 months when he kidnapped me. And I felt so helpless, but I was able to work with the victim's family. Her name was Julie Angel. Faith, like you, Eva, really helped drive my life. And her name was Julie Angel, who he murdered. And I worked with with Julie's mother and sister to help enact legislation. And I feel like this could be a really good policy piece. So anyway, I'll turn it over to Michelle. I know she has some more questions.
Oh, no, but we understand the importance of when you decide to reach out and then you can't get the help that you need. It adds to the trauma for people and to the fear when you're reaching out to the police for protection. And so I was wondering if, I think you might have maybe touched on this already, but did you find that you had to advocate then a lot for yourself to continue to try and get somebody to help out and assist and bring back some safety in your life again?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the only way that I felt like somebody was kind of looking out for me was when I went to the FBI. So just for information's sake, if somebody is stalking you by snail mail, which most people don't anymore, but he happened to, thank goodness, or we may not have caught him. But also if they're stalking you through social media or sending you any kind of emails, that all falls under FBI jurisdiction. So if they're emailing you threats, or if they are somehow wiring you threats, or they are, doing it through social media or through snail mail, those all fall under FBI jurisdiction. So it's a little bit more helpful. But then the problem is that's not a DNA case, right? So you kind of, if you don't know who the person is who's stalking you. If you do know who the person is, then at least I think it's more helpful than local law enforcement. Unfortunately, I did not really feel protected. I had to protect myself. But I mean, then I was lucky. Thank God I had a job that could pay for, a 24-hour, security car to be driving around. And thank God I had a job that could pay for all the security cameras and alarms and things and all the stuff, because what if you can't? Then you feel completely naked and alone.
Mm-hmm. So what advice do you have for people, Eva, that might have a stalker?
I mean, the heartbreaking answer is I don't know. Because every state is different. Legislation is different in every state.
Right.
And there needs to be some sort of conformity, some sort of, in the state legislations. And I mean, look, even, to the highest degree, Princess Diana was stalked to her death. And, it's, even she wasn't protected. Even she couldn't find protection. I mean, it's really heartbreaking. I don't even know how to answer that question, because every state has different legislation around it, and every case is so different. It could be stalking via mail. It could be stalking via somebody physically following you over. Every case is so different and no less dangerous. And no less dangerous of escalating to something worse. Mm-hmm. And the sad thing too is that it's a very, very lonely crime to be a victim of, because people kind of start getting sick of listening to you go, because nothing has happened per se. It's happening to you like 100%, like psychologically you're being terrorized. It is literal psychological emotional terrorism. But when it's going on for years and years, other people are kind of like, well, nothing's really happened to you, so I'm sure is it that bad? It is that bad. It is.
Which then adds to, again, to the trauma, having other people maybe minimize the experience, and from the statistics
and the loneliness
Angela read in the beginning, I mean, we're seeing 37% of survivors of stalking have PTSD. And that's actually pretty equivalent to what we see in terms of survivors of sexual assault. We've got about a third people will develop into PTSD. So I mean, this is a very, very traumatizing experience to go through. And, clearly what you're mentioning is we've got a lot of gaps. We've got a lot of areas that we're identifying that we still need a lot of advocacy here, and some action to make some change. So
definitely.
So I'll just ask another little question here. Being stalked can erode a person's sense of safety and trust, as you just identified here, and have an impact on emotional well-being, hence can develop even into PTSD for some individuals. How did this impact you dealing with all of this? And especially since you mentioned too, that your daughter was a target at some points of this process.
Yeah, she was a target for the last 7 years of it. And that was a tricky tightrope as a parent, because I wanted to make her aware of her surroundings at all times, and like, don't trust if a woman comes up to you, or a man comes up to you, or a kid comes up to you, or a dog comes up to you, because there are all these ways of, we know now that it's women that are sex trafficking girls, that it's other kids that are sex trafficking kids, that they're using everybody, and they're literally using dogs to be like, me find my dog, or look at my cute dog, come with me, I mean, whatever it is. So I was trying to make her aware without her knowing what was in the letters. She never knew what was in the letters until really we went to court. And so what ended up being really traumatizing for her was when it came to her school. She knew we had a stalker. When it came right to her school, and suddenly this person is not just threatening her, but threatening to kill other kids and other people at the school if they got in the way. She's envisioning like a whole school shooting happening because of her anxiety. Since then, we've had to treat. We've had to treat her anxiety. She's had it so bad. And then just the whole process of going to court and, is so overwhelming. And originally she wasn't going to speak. And I said, well, I think it's going to have a real impact on the sentencing. So if you don't have to, but if you find it in yourself, and they kept referring to it as a victim impact statement. And I said, we're not going to call it that. We're going to call it your empowerment statement, because this is not about being a victim now. Right now, you are getting to stand in your empowerment and take your power back with your statement. So we're not going to be the victims of this. We are going to be empowered by this. And this is your opportunity. And so sure enough, I let her sit with it. I said, you don't have to if you don't want to. I don't know if you guys have kids, but when you tell them they have to do something, they absolutely are going to dig their heels in and not do it. So I was like, you do you, but, and so she got up and gave the most phenomenal empowerment statement. And I think it psychologically, emotionally, I think it really helped her to be able to do that.
That is so beautiful. I love that. The empowerment statement. Oh my goodness. That just like really changes the script, flips the script, and gives that power back.
It's your only time to really be in control again. You've been out of control for so long, and it's your only time to speak your truth and say all the, to really take your power back. So I really wanted her to have that. And I was really glad she stepped into that.
Well, and I love what you did too there too, Eva, because, studies show that the best way that you can give survivors their power back is to kind of let them be in control. You didn't force her to do that. You really, kind of let her come to that on her own. And that really helped to give her power back. So kudos, mama. And yes, I have a daughter who just turned 7. So as you're telling the story, I cannot even imagine. So you are amazing. So just a quick question on when we tell our friends and family. So studies show that the first person that a survivor tells, if they react well, that's greatly going to impact that survivor's healing process. So when you came out to your coworkers, to your friends and family, I was just wondering, like, how did they react? Because oftentimes well-meaning loved ones often say not the right things, sometimes very victim blaming things. So I'm just curious kind of what your experience was like when you started telling people close to you what was happening.
Well, I was lucky in that case because it was happening at work. David Caruso had a stalker. Emily Proctor had a stalker. They were already dealing with that before mine came into play. So the studio was already aware. Producers were already aware. Everybody was taking it very seriously, thank God. And my manager was getting some of the letters. My publicist was getting some of the letters, and both of them are like family members to me. So I had them, they were equally freaked out because they were afraid that the stalker knew where they lived. And so we were kind of all in it together. Thank goodness. I had a lot of support, but I would imagine that, it's interesting because when it all finally came to a head 12 years later, a lot of friends of mine were like, oh my God, I didn't know that was still happening. I didn't know that. Wow, was still happening, because I just didn't share it. Because 5 years goes by, and 7 years goes by, and 10 years goes by, and it's not something you're still sharing, except for with the people that it's affecting directly.
Was that a conscious decision because you didn't want to give that experience any power, or did you just want to put it away?
It was a little bit of both. It was, it was a little bit of both. And I see now that, I felt really powerless about it too. I felt like there was nothing I could do. There was no way that the FBI could really help me, until there was more DNA available to access out in the world. And then this miracle happened, and all these other entities with DNA started popping up so that we could even find who he was, because it wasn't even we would never have found him unless he actually committed a crime. And what's even more creepy and disgusting is he was a nurse in a memory care facility. And so my brain immediately goes to what's happening at 3:00 in the morning in some poor little old lady's memory care room, and she doesn't remember, and none of them remember. Like, what is he doing? And yet he'll never be prosecuted for anything like that, because the memory care facility that he worked for just fired him. Everything's, look, smoke and mirrors, look that way, look away, because, they could be, who knows, sued for probably gads of things. And I'm sure they didn't even look into it, but that makes me really sad. And I also know I'm not the only person who got stalked by him. There was another girl from a soap opera that I know for sure, because her mom, and she was only 17 at the time, and her mom called me and said, oh my God, do you know who this Freddy Krueger is? He wrote my daughter these terrifying letters and said, if you don't believe that I'm gonna, that I am sincere and I'm gonna do all these things, just ask Eva LaRue, she'll tell you. And I said, yeah, I absolutely know who it is. And then I gave her my FBI guy's phone number. But unfortunately, when it came to prosecution time, she didn't want to be. I wish to God she'd come forward, because then maybe he would have gotten more time. He only got 3.5 years. Total for me and Kaya.
Years.
Not even 3 and 3, but just 3.5 years for Kaya and I as a bundle.
Wow.
For over 12 years of terror. Yes, we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Michelle, that's why I wish she had stepped forward, because maybe he would have gotten more time. But.
Yeah. Wow. I know Michelle, you've got the next question here, which I'm excited to hear.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to check in on this 12-year journey here. What did you find that was helpful in making you resilient through all of this?
During the whole 12 years, I mean,
yeah, what were some of the things that you found that were helpful and kept you buoyant?
I mean, the 2 times that I moved made me feel a little more secure. And then, and then that little bubble would pop. But I think really for me, it was compartmentalizing it. I couldn't live in that kind of fear on the daily. You just can't.
Sure.
It's not a feasible thing. You're always on the alert,
right?
But and always aware. But I just couldn't live with that on the forefront of my mind all the time. When it was brought to my attention, then of course it, because for sometimes for 5 or 6 months I wouldn't get any letters, and so I would be, sitting in this nice little sweet spot, thinking, okay, maybe he moved on, maybe he disappeared, maybe, I don't know. And then the letters would start showing up again. So
was there any book, Eva, in your healing journey that you found to be helpful or therapeutic?
No, but I have an amazing therapist. So it was really working through a lot of trauma, a lot of triggering things, a lot of and then also therapy for my daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, without that, I think I just don't know if I would have been sane through it. I really don't, and I don't think my daughter would have. Well, no, I know for a fact my daughter would not have been able to have real coping mechanisms now, with that anxiety and same for me. I would have learned no tools. I would have had no tools to deal with the anxiety and the fear.
Yeah. In psychology, we always like to talk about resiliency. And then in addition to that, there's a new concept called post-traumatic growth. And when we look at that, it was developed in the mid-90s by 2 psychologists. And it's the idea that resiliency is kind of like, if I use a metaphor of going along the line horizontally, all of a sudden a traumatic situation hits and that impacts you. And then you kind of go down a little bit. And then from there, you kind of bounce back up using, certain tools, having support systems. But with post-traumatic growth, we like to say is not only do you just bounce back up, but you actually go even higher up. There's a growth process. There's a transformation, a metamorphosis. And I always tell people, it doesn't discount. You could still have PTSD and see post-traumatic growth. Some people arrive to it at different various points of their healing journey, and that's okay. But I just wanted to check in with you and see, what did you think maybe is your post-traumatic growth? Where did you see positive experiences actually coming from such a traumatic situation?
I think, and again, this is kind of where my motto kicks in, that it didn't, just happened to us. It happened for us, because I've seen for myself and for Kaya, just having really dove into working with our therapist, how the tools were not just tools to deal with the anxiety and the fear and the depression from it, but also just the tools for life, for our communication, for our, the growth has been immense since then. I don't even know how to describe how healing the journey has been. And that was definitely a motivator, but it was also happening at the same time. Her dad died 4 months after this guy was apprehended. And so I think, had we not already been had enough tools in our tool belt, I don't know. It was the most difficult time. And then we went into COVID. So it was an incredibly heartbreaking like wave after wave after wave, because my dad died, he was apprehended, her dad died, my mother-in-law died, my mom died. Like it was just, I hate to use the word, but a shit show of like trauma, like just trauma, 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 trauma. And we just were not getting a break. But if we had not really been committed to our emotional practices and our emotion and our healing, and are just like creating a really good web for each other and with each other. I don't know how we would have psychologically survived it.
Wow.
Oh, thank you for sharing. I am so sorry for all the loss, and especially all in such a short period of time.
It was just crazy.
Difficult. And I know we're running out of time, but I do want I want us to talk for a minute about the work that you're doing to bring more attention to the seriousness of stalking, like the project with Forte Entertainment. Can we talk about that for just a moment?
Yeah. So when the guys, I lovingly refer them as Steve squared because it's Steve Bush and Steve Kramer, so the two Steves. But I just think of them as my saviors. I mean, they really were the absolute heroes, and we've become such good friends since. And we have been to CrimeCon together and spoken like various different things, the three of us, and sometimes the four of us with my daughter. And so it's been really an incredible experience to get to just go out and talk about what happened and what they did and their part in it and how they created this technology, which is fascinating. And so now I am working with Forte Entertainment. We're co-producing a docuseries on how they came to me, because they're coming right off Golden State Killer, which is the most fascinating thing, because it's this ragtag team of 6 people that just kind of came together out of a pure fascination with this this stalker, or this serial killer case that hadn't been solved in 43 years. And then my case being the next case that they picked up, which was just, and that the FBI was not behind it. They weren't supportive of what they were doing, and then ended up leaving the FBI, and now they're doing all this work on their own, and how successful they've been, and they're training other law enforcement in how to do it, and it's just been really incredible. So we're working on that as a docuseries, and then a possible scripted series.
Oh, that is beautiful. Well, we are almost out of time, but I have one quick question. This is kind of to end us on a light note, because I know these issues are so difficult, and thank you so much for sharing everything that you've shared. Like, we feel your soul, like it's going to help so many people. So here at PAVE and survivors.org, we're really fond of dance parties and stress relief for fun. So we love to rock out, dance like nobody's watching. So my question for you is, what is one of your favorite dance party songs? What do you love to dance to?
Oh my gosh. I have so many. Okay, I have to say my daughter and I will rock out and sing and try to sing. Well, she knows all the words. I don't know all the words. To I Like Big Butts. So old school rap.
Old school. Oh, I love that. That's so great. Well, I mean, God bless you and your daughter. What a journey. I am so infuriated that lack of sentencing, 3.5 years. I feel like it should be at least a year for a year of the years that you were traumatized. That is so incredibly frustrating. But
or then at least it should have been 3 and 3. 3 for me, 3 for her.
Yes. Yeah. So we obviously have a lot of work to do, but we would love to continue to work with you, Eva. Your story is so incredible. What a story of resilience and really just taking your power back. I love that you helped do that for your daughter. And we are so grateful for your time. I know everyone's going to be so inspired. So everybody can find you on social media at Eva LaRue.
Yes. At Eva LaRue on Instagram. And I think it's at Eva LaRue on TikTok, but mostly Instagram. I'm mostly on Instagram. But
Perfect.
just like one little last word, I
Please.
know that kids do not want to go to therapy. They're, they think that there's still a stigma around it. Maybe they don't so much now, I don't know. But when I first started her in therapy when she was 12, she was kicking and screaming, did not want to go, thought I was dumb, blah, 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 blah. But I'm telling you, don't listen to them. This is one of those parenting things that they're going through so much, whether there's a stalker or there isn't. There's so much that they're dealing with now, with the bullying that you don't even know about, and the naked pics and the sextortion and all the things that they're dealing with. It's the pressure that's on them that we didn't have at that age. If you think that your kid needs therapy, don't listen to them when they say they don't want to go. Just implement it, because by the time they're 15 or 16 and you don't have any say, I just feel like a lot of times I'll be like, oh, well, she doesn't want to, and she's really adamant about not wanting to, so I guess I won't push it. No, push it. Therapy is very important. It's so important. And it starts giving them tools at a young age. Now she goes by herself. She's like, she schedules all her own appointments. She's been doing that for years. She loves it. She doesn't know what she'd do without it. And she goes, thank God, Mom, you made me do it. But thank God I have this, because now I've got a whole tool belt that I would never have had as a young adult in college. So
it's beautiful. No, thank you for that. And it's a really important point. And if one therapist doesn't work, then find somebody else. I know some of the teen survivors that we've worked with have needed to find somebody else, and there is
you got to find a fit. Yeah,
right.
Don't be turned off just because it's somebody who you don't jive with, or is not your jam. Just look. You will find the person who is a good fit for you, but don't be turned off just because you have one, maybe bad apple or something.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Thank you so much. So for anybody watching, you are absolutely so with us here today. Make sure that you take care of yourself. You can visit survivors.org for resources and community and support. And just remember to love yourself and support each other. And together we can change the world. Thank you all so much for tuning in.